Hello everyone, welcome to episode 3 of our Tank Talk series. If you're new to this series, basically it's an inside look, behind the scenes look at the different aquariums down here in the Fluval aquatic showroom, kind of talking more about them in detail, about the livestock, the equipment, etc. If you haven't seen the previous 2 episodes, I would recommend that you do so. The link to the playlist will be in the description of this video. So today's episode is about an aquarium that you've seen probably in many of our other videos. It's our large double reef system. So we can start by talking about the aquarium itself, or in this case, the aquariums. The top tank is 6 feet in length, it's 125 gallons. The bottom tank is 4 feet in length, it's 75 gallons. The sump holds in total about 50 gallons of water, but its operating level is at about 30 gallons or so. So in total, this system, because it's all plumbed together, it all runs as one system, is about 230 gallons in volume. In terms of the lighting, it's all Fluval Marine Spectrum Bluetooth LEDs, the Marine 3.0 units. There's 6 of them in total on the top tank. It's the 3-foot units, and they're placed side by side to span the 6 feet of the tank. And then there are 3 deep on the tank on the top one. The bottom tank has 2 4-foot units, which span the 4 feet of the tank. Moving on to filtration. In reality, this aquarium does not have any filtration as per the conventional sense. There's some foam pads and foam blocks and stuff like that in the sump, but that's there more for noise reduction than it is to really filter the water. So this aquarium has been set up using the Berlin method. If you are unfamiliar with this method, there's a lot of really great articles about it online. I encourage you to read those, but sort of a quick snapshot into what it is. Basically, the Berlin method says that you can take a lot of live rock and in some cases sand, but I don't use any in this aquarium, we'll get to that later. But live rock is very porous and has a lot of surfaces for aerobic bacteria to live on. And so this bacteria, as per the nitrogen cycle, will take organic material and decompose it and process it and convert it into ammonia, then nitrite, and then nitrate. But in a saltwater, in a marine environment, through the process of diffusion, these nitrates that are produced can move deeper into the live rock where anaerobic bacteria are present and oxygen is not present. And this nitrate can be produced into nitrogen gas, which can then escape out of the aquarium. So it's kind of a closed cycle, which it doesn't really happen in a freshwater environment. You can help out this cycle, this process, by doing partial water changes, which I do quite frequently on this aquarium. And of course, you use a very powerful, very efficient protein skimmer to kind of take out some organic material and ease the load on the live rock on the aquarium. In terms of the other equipment that's on the tank, the return pump is a Fluval SP6 unit, and then the circulation pumps are Fluval CP4 units, and the skimmer is a very large, very effective precision marine unit. So the last couple of notes about the aquarium itself and the equipment. The heating is Fluval M300 units. There's 3 of them located inside of the sump. The salt mix that's used is Fluval marine salt. One of the advantages about this salt mix is that it dissolves very rapidly in water. Usually in about 20 minutes or so, it'll be crystal clear and ready to go. What's nice about that is that you don't need to prepare your salt water the night before your water change, for example. You can kind of do it all at the same time. And lastly, in terms of additives and supplementation, I dose calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium. I don't do anything more than that because most of the corals in this tank are soft corals and mushrooms and zoanthids. They don't really need much supplementation. Furthermore, because of the partial water changes, these levels are replenished quite frequently. The salt mix contains a lot of them. So yeah, dosing calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium every 2 weeks or so. Okay, moving on to livestock. In the top tank, the 6-foot tank, there are 5 yellowtail damselfish. As far as damselfish go, these guys are fairly well behaved. a 6-foot tank is big enough for each of them to kind of have their little territory, their own spot. As I clean the aquarium, they like to come out and attack my hand if I get too close to where they live. So that's pretty amusing. But no, they're not too bad. They leave everyone else in the tank alone for the most part. There is also a breeding pair of black ocellaris clownfish. They have spawned several times in this tank, which I am personally very proud of. Black ocellaris clownfish are a naturally occurring variation of clownfish. They are, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful fish in the hobby. They're jet black colors and that gleaming white stripe. It's breathtaking, really. There is a single lyre-tail anthias. There used to be more of them, but unfortunately this guy is the only one that's left. But he's okay. He likes to chase around the damsels from time to time. He's just doing his thing. There's a pincushion urchin, which are a lot of fun. They're very good cleaners. They eat all types of algae, including coralline algae. So if you like that pink color to your rocks and to your overflow boxes, he definitely will eat that. But they're fun because they like to pick up things that they encounter in their environment and put them on his back. So coral frags and empty shells, it'll all end up being paraded around the tank on the back of the pincushion urchin. It's actually not entirely known why they do this. There's a few theories. One of them is that it helps with camouflage, which is easy to understand. It's also thought that they do it to give themselves more weight, so that in a tidal environment where the currents are quite strong, they can be more planted and less easily blown over by tides. There's also a cleaner shrimp, which are fascinating organisms and really helpful additions to an aquarium. I like sticking my hand in the tank and having the shrimp come up and inspect my hand for anything that it can eat. It's a very good party trick. There's a bunch of snails and hermit crabs. I don't personally like hermit crabs. It seems that no matter what I do, they eventually murder all of my snails. So I only have a couple of them in there just to really target certain types of algae which may pop up. Otherwise, the cleanup crew is mostly snails. There's a few different species, as you should always have more than one. For the most part, though, it is trochus snails, which are great because they're really good cleaners. They eat a wide variety of algae, but also they reproduce, they breed in captivity. So right now there's a whole bunch of babies and juveniles, so the population kind of sustains itself, which is nice. In terms of corals, as I mentioned before, it's mostly soft coral. There's some chalice, there's a bunch of zoanthids and polyphylla, and then there's mushrooms spread out throughout the entire aquarium. As far as the livestock in the bottom 4-foot tank goes, there's a yellow tang who is just my favorite little friend. When I do my partial water changes and I'm scraping the glass, he likes to follow me around and eat the algae that I dislodge from the glass, which is a really special experience to have with such a unique, exotic animal. There's a flame angelfish, which is, first of all, just a gorgeous, gorgeous animal. Dwarf angelfish and all angelfish aren't always totally compatible with reef aquariums. The reason for that is that naturally angelfish will pick at rock work in search of crustaceans and invertebrates and stuff like that. So in a coral reef environment, they can end up picking at corals, which will upset the coral, and then it can eventually stop opening and ultimately die. But our little guy is a model citizen. He doesn't touch anything inside of the aquarium, so that's really awesome. There are 3 green reef chromis. A lot of people start their aquariums with a damselfish to sort of cycle the aquarium, and that almost always ends in disaster because damselfish are psychopaths. Get a chromis instead. They're very cheap. They're as cheap as damselfish, and they're much more placid. They're much more chill and relaxed, and they don't try to murder everything that they see. There are also 2 clownfish. There's a percula clown. I don't actually know which morph. I think it's an onyx, but it might be something different. And then there's a regular ocellaris. These guys get along really great with each other and spend most of their time frolicking in the anemones. There's also a short spine urchin. He doesn't come out much during the day. He's out more at night. He kind of goes around grazing on algae. He's a good little guy. There is another cleaner shrimp and the same mix of hermit crabs and snails as in the top tank. Then in terms of corals, there are a whole bunch of bubble tip anemones. It started out as 2 and they've split and spread several times. There are a few pieces of LPS, including a gigantic elegance coral, which I'm very proud of. It started out as a single head about 5 years ago and has grown into this monster. And then finally, there are a bunch of mushroom corals, kind of spread out again through the aquarium. There's less corals in this tank, they're less dense, obviously because of the stinging nature of the anemones and the LPS corals. I have mentioned partial water changes several times at this point. It's obviously an important part of this aquarium system. So I will do about a 25% water change every 2 weeks on the tank, on the system as a whole. And then in the off weeks, I'll do a glass cleaning, just usually the front pane, just to make sure that the tank looks as good as it possibly can at all times. In terms of feeding, the fish are fed 3 times a day. In the morning, they get bug bites. So as we say, all fish love bugs, including saltwater fish. They take bug bites very readily. Actually, even the corals will eat bug bites. So yeah, the tropical formula bug bites in the morning, and then at midday and in the evening they get frozen food. I will also give nori, or dried seaweed, about twice a week. That's mostly for the yellow tang, but all the other fish like to nibble at it as well. It's a good supplement to round out their diet. So, to wrap up this episode, I'd like to discuss the topic of substrate in a reef aquarium. It's a pretty controversial subject. People have their own points of view and their own experience. I think in reality, there's not really one right way of maintaining a reef aquarium. You can go at it from different angles and enjoy success. So what I'm about to say is just what's worked for me. Take it as it is. If you've got your own experience that contradicts with what I say, well, that's fantastic. And I would like to hear about it, so please leave your comments down below. So for the longest time, this aquarium did have sand in it. It had a very thin layer, about a centimeter, half an inch or so. And I every single time I did a water change, I went in and I siphoned it as much as I possibly could, and I got all of the debris out. And nevertheless, I had algae issues. I had a lot of hair algae and cyanobacteria and all these disgusting things growing in the tank, which I just couldn't get ahead of. And one day I just said, that's it. I pulled all of the substrate out of the tank. And since then, the tank's been fantastic. I think the reason for that is because in a captive environment such as this one, this is really a petri dish. It's a tiny little glass box. You can't expect the processes which naturally occur in coral reefs in our world's ocean to also take place in this small of an environment. So in the ocean, there's deep oceanic trenches where nutrients can be pulled out of the reefs and brought to, for example. That's not the case here. So if you have substrate, you can try to siphon it as well as you possibly can, but you'll never get all of it. And then eventually you'll have nutrients building up. And that's the same for shallow sand beds or for deep sand beds. So in my experience and in my opinion, the best and the easiest way to maintain your reef tank is with no sand whatsoever. It gives you hands-on control. It really lets you, dictate what the parameters, what the nutrient levels are going to be, and that's ultimately going to be the best for your aquarium. So yeah, if I have one tip, it's get your hands wet. Get in there, clean your tank, help it along, and you will have the best results. So that is going to wrap it up for this episode, guys. Thank you so very much for watching. As always, please leave a comment down below. Let's talk about reef aquariums. Tell me how you maintain yours. Tell me what you think about ours and how we maintain it. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new. Hit that bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video. Otherwise, thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.